Hi, this is Lorraine Wilburn from North Canton, Ohio, and you're listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, the podcast where two Midwestern moms talk progressive politics and political activism with expert guests like me.
Hi, everybody. This is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, and today I am here with Gabby Goldstein, who is the co-founder and political director of the Sister District Project. Hi, Gabby.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on. So let's start with a little bit of background about Sister District Project. What is it, and how did it get started?
Yeah, so the Sister District Project was started after the 2016 election by a group of 5 women in the Bay Area of California. And we came together with, probably some of the same feelings that a lot of folks who identify as Democrats or progressives had after the 2016 election, which was, oh my God, what has happened? How badly have we been asleep at the wheel, and what can we do? And so living here in the Bay Area, we came up with this idea, borrowing from the idea of a sister city. What if we were able to harness the energy and the resources from folks in places like where we live and direct those towards strategic, winnable races somewhere else where a great Democrat is running and where we could have a big impact? Here in California, we're very fortunate to have a progressive state legislature and at the federal level too, but there's a lot of the country that could use the support. And so we sort of thought about where the biggest impact could be and came to the understanding pretty quickly that state legislatures were the best bang for our buck, so to speak, for a bunch of reasons that we can talk about. But that was the idea, and we basically threw up a website, and it sort of took off organically. We never, did any promotion or marketing for the idea. It really was just an idea and a website. And it's grown to about 25,000 volunteers across the country, organized into local teams based on where they live. And we really focus on online to offline engagement. So people may come together online, but we really focus on having our teams meet in person and build communities that way. So that's kind of an overview of how we got started and what the general model looks like.
And so what is your background? Is politics something that you have focused on before, or was this sort of new territory for you?
Yeah, it's really interesting. No, I don't come from a professional background in politics. In fact, none of the co-founders did. I'm a lawyer and a health policy academic by training, a bioethics lawyer, and 2 of our co-founders were federal public defenders. Another co-founder was an environmental lawyer. We really came at this not with expertise or, sort of elite training in politics. We're just a few, I hope relatively bright citizens who have been sort of engaged by the current events. I mean, my background, probably, I'm sure all of my co-founders, but certainly for me, draws on, a professional history of being interested and focused on social justice and rights and bodily autonomy and these sorts of things. So there's a lot of the same sentiments that flow through into the work that I'm doing now in this role, but no, did not come from the political world.
There's a lot of us in that club, I think.
Definitely.
So you said that you have 25,000 volunteers at this point. What exactly does that mean? How are you defining who is a volunteer and how people are getting involved?
Yeah, so it's probably that's an undercount, probably pretty severely. So the folks that have signed up through sisterdistrict.com are then put into local teams based on where they live. And what we do is we choose a set of races for our support at sort of at the headquarters level. And then borrowing again from that sister cities model, we sister up our teams to specific state legislative races for their support over the election cycle. So, for instance, I live in Berkeley, California, and my local sister district team here in the East Bay was last cycle supporting two Virginia House of Delegates candidates and now delegates, Kathy Tran and Cheryl Turpin. But over in San Francisco, which is just over the bridge, it's a different sister district team. And last cycle, they were supporting two different candidates who are now delegates, Lee Carter and Elizabeth Guzman. So it's not a slate approach. It's really a one-to-one pairing between the team and the candidate, which we found really kind of deepens the engagement. But all that said, we have various ways of tracking engagement and the growth of our teams. We've grown by about 15 teams since the beginning of the year. We currently have about 65 active teams across the country. But one of the challenges of, using all off-the-shelf tech stuff, which is what we're doing, this sort of decentralized organizing model is that we don't always know exactly how many people come to our events and, that level of detail, which is why I think that the 25,000 number is probably a significant undercount based on the data that we have from our teams and in terms of, how many people open their emails, how many people come to their events and all that sort of thing. But it's a growing organization, and it's been really nice to see the enthusiasm growing even as we go into the summer doldrums, so to speak.
And so how do you decide which candidates you're going to support?
Great question. So I, as our political director, I oversee a team of volunteer researchers. And it's a really fun interdisciplinary team of folks. There's about 45 people that worked on our race targeting project this year. And some folks are, have a data background. Some folks are, don't at all. We've got everyone from retired school teachers to a cultural anthropologist to software engineers at Google who helped with this project. And so I'm trained as a mixed methods social scientist. Shout out to my dissertation chair. So I definitely think, obviously, looking at the historical voting data, demographic data, and that sort of thing for various districts that we're interested in is important. But then an equally important piece is qualitative conversations with stakeholders on the ground, everyone from grassroots groups to labor groups to party folks, to really get round out an understanding of the district and the opportunity, the political sort of circumstances or context, and all the rest. So it's really a mixed methods approach. But even to get to that point, we really had to articulate a national political strategy for how to even target chambers to begin with, or seats to begin with. And so last year, which was our first year, we were in Virginia, mostly in Virginia for our races. And that's because 2017 was a very off-cycle year. Very few states were holding general elections at all. So that made the race targeting pretty simple. This year, there's over 7,000 state legislative races. So we really had to focus on a few particular areas that we wanted to invest our volunteers' time and energy. So in going through that process, we identified 3 types of chambers that were interested in working in this year. The first are chambers where Democrats are very close to having a majority, where we think we can flip the chamber this year. So places like the Colorado Senate, where Dems are only down 1 seat, or the Maine Senate, where Dems are down 1 seat, fits into that category. The second are chambers where Democrats have a very fragile majority, where Dems just have 1 seat, 1 or 2 seat advantage. So we really want to defend those and expand the Democratic slim majority there. So the Washington Senate is an example. And then the third are what I call no chamber left behind. They're chambers that we may not have a great shot at flipping this cycle. Places, like Pennsylvania, the upper and lower chambers, and Michigan, where we may be down 10, 15 seats, but we have to make as many inroads as we can this year ahead of the census that's coming and redistricting after that. So those are the three types of chambers that we're focused on this year. And as I said at the top, the process then of going from, we're interested in this chamber down to the individual seat level is that, both quantitative and qualitative process of getting to know a district and the opportunity there.
So I noticed on your website where you list the candidates that you're currently working with that a lot of them, the vast majority, are women. Is that deliberate?
We certainly want to help create the world that we want to see, which would be a country where where state legislatures look a lot more like the state, which means electing more women, electing folks from the LGBTQ community, electing folks from communities of color. And so it's certainly part of our mission. We don't sort of have we don't only support female candidates. We've been very proud to support some great dudes, but we do definitely, want to help create a set of elected officials that look more like America than our current electeds do, which lean very much towards one gender.
So let's talk then some about what the volunteers actually do. What are the kinds of activities that they're doing in support of these candidates?
Yeah, definitely. So we work with candidates and their campaigns directly. We're on the coordinated side. So we're able to make sure that whatever we're asking our volunteers to do is exactly what the campaigns want and need in terms of the strategy that they've put together. So what volunteers do are the same sorts of things that you would do for local candidates. So we do tons of phone banks, phone calling. To date, we have made about 120,000 phone calls to voters in the districts that we are supporting. We do text messaging. We've done currently about 185,000 text messages to voters, letting them know who our candidate is and when the election is, and sometimes even having conversations over text message, which can be kind of fun. We send a lot of postcards. So I think we've sent around 110,000 postcards, handwritten postcards to voters in the districts that we're supporting, with the same sort of messaging and sort of raising the name recognition. And then a big piece is fundraising. So our volunteers have held hundreds of small house parties for their candidates to raise those really important grassroots dollars. So those are the sorts of things we do. So it's both fundraising and field support. And then, of course, we have our volunteers go out and actually canvass door to door in the districts that they're supporting. A lot of our volunteer support is not particularly close to their sister district, so to speak. Like I mentioned last year, we were most of our races were in Virginia, so most people were not super close by. But we were still able to bring a ton of people out, particularly for that critical last weekend before the election, the GOTV weekend, Get Out the Vote. And at this level, at the state ledge level, even a few dozen volunteers can make a huge difference. For instance, Cheryl Turpin, who is now a delegate, who was one of the candidates my home team here in Berkeley was supporting last year, she ended up winning by 394 votes. We brought out 20 volunteers from the East Bay of California, but the Bay Area to help her for GOTV, to knock doors. And we were actually half of her GOTV support for her entire campaign for that weekend. And she won by 394 votes. That's the kind of impact that our teams can have on these critical but often overlooked state ledge races. A little bit goes a really long way. And just to finish, just on Cheryl Turpin, we ended up raising 16% of all of the money that she raised for her entire campaign. And there were a few other examples like that where, $25,000 or, whatever our team raised made a huge huge impact on her campaign and similar campaigns. So those are the sorts of things that our volunteers do.
So